Okay, so I want to talk about weapon comps again because I feel like this is becoming a reoccurring issue in the team's play as of late. So, just to get right into it, you're going to see a list of things that I've categorized as the specials. So, you have retake specials, missiles, booyah bomb, crab tank, things that can kill things or get picks. You got Trizuka, Inkjet, Zipcaster. These are specials that sort of complement or help with retakes. Then you have the suicide button, which, I mean, looking at the special should be pretty self explanatory. And I call these useless for retakes because they don't really provide much. I mean, you could argue that Super Chump is okay for retake, but the problem with Super Chump is that the chumps aren't deadly enough. They don't do enough damage, so to make this work, you actually need two of the same special. And it's not very reliable. So, looking at both comps real quick, we're just gonna take a quick look. If you'll notice, like, we have pretty much everything here in this composition where it's just like you have like a bunch of lethals, or at least two lethals, a bomb, and some stuff here. And if you notice, the enemy team's comp, there's a lot of things that help with getting kills and retaking. Now, what's really important to understand about how your team comp is supposed to function is based off how each weapon plays and how each weapon then functions with the rest of its comp. Like, if we look at your comp, can we say that these weapons will synergize and mesh well with what each and every single one of you are doing versus what the enemy team is doing and what they have at their disposal? And if we look at the enemy team's comp, which I made up on purpose as an example, you'll see double inkjet, crab tank, and booyah bomb. And if you notice, two of these specials are good for retakes, and the other ones are meant to get kills. Now, this comp consists of a lot of AoE because you have double fizzy, burst bomb, which is also really good for assisting when you're in a position where you can't directly take a fight with your main weapon. So you throw burst bombs at targets when Splash can't just walk forwards and take a fight, which a lot of the time Splash can't. So if the Splash is like sitting right here and there's someone over here, but it can't just walk up and shoot it, what you'll probably have is like the machine sitting somewhere over here. And if the Splash can run forwards, then it will. But a lot of the time, you'll probably just throw burst bombs if you're not like able to directly just run up to the target and shoot them. Um, so with that being said, this is why like this comp works so well. Plus, Splash Machine is a very good pairing in this game. It's the strongest pairing in this game, so having a Splash and Machine makes a lot of sense. Then you have Ballpoint with Inkjet, and this makes sense because of the Inkjet buff. So Inkjet's been very good lately. It's very consistent now with the two shot and getting directs more consistently as well. Plus, it's AoE, meaning that anything with like a bunch of like chip damage will definitely work well with this ballpoint. Machine also does because if, let's just say, the ballpoint hits someone for like 50 damage, then the machine can just hit that person for a direct and one shot them. Even if the machine only gets one hit on the person, for like, let's just say like 38 damage, or so I believe it's 38, and then the ballpoint gets like two shots off, that's still enough to kill because of the assist coming from the machine. Even if the ballpoint gets an indirect for 50, the machine can still two shot without having to like really get a direct and then follow up with a second shot to kill. It would just take two indirects to kill, which makes it much easier. And Toxic Mist, which is useful for a multitude of things, really. So with Toxic Mist, you can use it to gather like information on where people are. If you throw a Toxic Mist and someone happens to walk into it, you'll hear the sound, so that tells you someone's in that area specifically. Or like, let's just say you throw a Toxic Mist like somewhere on this ramp area here, and your team decides to throw like a bunch of fizzies in this ramp. Anyone that's caught here will probably die to the fizzy, or they'll be forced to retreat back over here, and that forces them to play a lot more passively, or they'll be forced to weight. So it's a really good way to stall out pushes between an enemy team, which means they're going to be forced to play a lot more defensively instead of trying to um, get in as easily. Basically, in order for them to get in on this part of the map, they would have to actually brute force their way in with a bunch of specials, which is usually what a lot of teams do anyway, but this comp would be very good at shutting that down if played correctly. Um, Now, if we talk about how these weapons synergize, now you have basically two specials that are relatively able to get picks if able to, and if not, then it's gonna be hard. And you really have nothing that like's really solid for retake. I mean, you have Ink Strike, but Ink Strike isn't the best. It does help with retakes, but you need something that's actually reliable for retaking, and then have a Tri Strike to actually go along with it, because then it'll complement the retake much better. Same thing with like things like Inkstorm, Whale, Wavebreaker. Wavebreaker also helps stall, so it's really good for pushes when or stopping pushes, just as long as you incorporate something else with the retake. You can't just have one wave breaker out and then expect that to do something. You need something else to like actually allow you to get in on the map, and then have a wave breaker to also complement that push as you're going in. So if you're trying to like capture most of mid, you could essentially have a crab tank set up somewhere like on these parts of the map. Like your crab tank could probably set up here, or even somewhere along this side of the map, or even just set up here, or have a booyah bomb go into mid, and then as you're doing that, your wavebreaker can then sit in mid somewhere like right here, and while you have all this under your control, you can then start to push up, and the wavebreaker makes it so that people are gonna have a much harder time actually getting in, especially that you already have control of mid as well, so they'll be forced to like retreat back over into these areas and wait more patiently before they can actually start pushing again. Um, Now, if we go into like how like these weapons actually synergize well, here's the thing: they really don't, and here's why. So in the scrim that I watched, you had two weapons that basically did the same exact thing. They're basically farming for specials, and then you have a Splatana, which is really just the main aggressor in this case. And if two weapons are doing the exact same thing, and you only have one weapon aggressing, it's going to be really hard for these two weapons to do anything, especially if you have an E-leader in your comp. Not to say that E-leader is making the comp worse, it's just that E-leader is not going to have a lot to work with if this is what you're going to be doing. Um, so there's one of two things you could do. You could change up your playstyle or switch up your comp. It's one or the other. And if you don't want to switch up your comp, you have to change how you're going to play this comp and play this comp as far as your playstyle. Meaning that one of these weapons is going to have to be a lot more aggressive when it comes to pushing forwards. Meaning that it would probably have to be either the T-Tech or Splash. I would probably say either or works, because you have a weapon that's capable of, Splash is very reliable, and T-Tech is fairly reliable because it's a three shot and you have a lethal bomb. Same thing with Splash, it's fairly reliable, consistent, has a suction bomb, and you have Tri Strike for helping with retakes. So it's not the worst, but could be better. And Splatana being the main aggressor, it's not gonna get much done if two weapons on the same comp are doing the exact same thing, painting for special and farming. It's just not gonna work. And E-leader cannot complement what the Stamper is doing, so it's just not gonna work. So if we were to change up our composition, you would need to look at the list and say, okay, what can we use that'll help with retaking um, parts of the map, and what can we use to also help complement our retake? And if we need to get kills, what can we use to help get kills? Now, from what I know, a lot of the time, Bleach is usually going to be playing Stamper, so if we want to have a Zipcast, then we would get um, Stamper. Now, you need something that's fairly reliable and good at getting kills as well. And you also need something that's going to be aggressive with the Stamper. Something that can retake, that has a good special, is Booyah Bomb. And the only weapon I can think of that's reliable and has a good retake special is Machine. So therefore, you would have Machine as your next choice. Now, you also have things like, let's just say you want to have something that can complement a retake. Now, if you have your charger player and they don't want to switch off charger, then you have this charger weapon, which can, I guess, in a way, I guess in a sense, it can use Tri Strike, which will sort of help complement the retake. But then you also need something else that's going to be capable of painting as well. So if you want something that can paint, but also still get kills, then you could use T-Tech, or you could also use Splash. You already have something that complements the retake with Machine, so therefore you could still opt in to use Splatter Shot if that's what you want to do. So in this case, you could do Splatter Shot. In this case, how about I just do this to make it easier? And this could be your new comp. Or you could change up a little bit and say, well, what if we don't want an anchor weapon? Well, you could do the same exact thing here, where it's still Stamper, it's still Machine, and then let's just say you want something that complements the Machine, which is like Splash, so you probably have Splash somewhere along these lines. And then for the Tri Strike, you might have like one something like a T Tech. Um, Neo Splash also works, but I like T Tech personally, so this could also be your second comp. And if you look at this comp, you have two things that still paint, but the good thing about this comp is that it still allows these two weapons to hold the front line, because essentially you're not going to be trying to hard carry with T-Tech and Splash. A lot of the time, I mean, Splash has to more so focus on getting the Crab Tank, um, as it battles out against the other Splash, or just trying to use its special to like kill things like the um, ballpoint or the other machine. And with a Zipcast, if they were to use Crab Tank, you can use the Zipcast on the Crab Tank to make this weapon, this special, basically not exist. You also had Tri Strike, which can also help deal with that. And then you had things like Splash Machine, which is again the very strong pairing to also help with many other things, like getting map control or finishing kills. You could throw burst bombs at someone, and the machine can finish that off with just one hit if it landed direct. Even if you don't land it direct, you can still two shot, and it would take less time to. It would just still take less time and effort to get those kills and finish them. Same thing with Stamper, because you also have a burst bomb as well, so that also complements it very well. And in terms of damage numbers, if you hit someone for like 70, the machine can one tap them. If you hit someone for 70, the Splash can throw a burst bomb or two to kill them as well. You also have double bursts, a fizzy, and a splat bomb, so you have plenty of lethal damage for Chip, which makes this a very good comp all around. Um, Now let's just say you still want to have your backline, but maybe your backline wants to try something different. Maybe they might want to do something like Inkjet instead, like a Splatling. Um, a lot of different things you could choose from. So you might have your own ballpoint. In this case, you might have your own ballpoint. You'll still have Stamper. Um, if you want Tri Strike, you'll probably have this, and then you'll probably have the machine as well. Um, or you could even just have a splash here as well to sort of like um, basically like uh, regardless, it still works. So like this would basically be like, okay, you now have ballpoint with Stamper, T Tech for Tri Strike, or even just Splash Machine. Like either one of these will work basically, and this could be your comp overall. And this would still work very well because you have a composition that's very good at dealing lots of damage. It also helps with clearing parts of the map, so therefore it allows for you to finish kills and still be able to push forwards. Like your inkjet can get kills, your zipcaster can kill the crab. You might use your own crab to kill the crab, or even have strike for the crab and booyah bomb to retake. And this would still be a good comp all around. Um, and these other ones, these are fairly useless. These help with retakes. So, like I said before, if you have this, then this will be like some of your new comps. Now, if you don't want to change up your comp too much, then play. You have to change up your playstyle. Meaning, again, one of these weapons would have to be a lot more aggressive with the Stamper. In this case, either the T-Tech or the Neo Splash. Um, Problem with Neo Splash is that Neo Splash by itself, when it sits here, and then you might have something like a Slosher just sitting here. That can be difficult, especially if they throw Toxic Mist. Another splash could also be here with the Slosher and throw Burst Bombs. Machine will definitely be Splash 101 in any situation. And then if it's like a ballpoint just sitting back here throwing fizzies, and then it moves up to like shoot the splash that's sitting here, it forces itself to retreat. Um, but when a splash that's not by itself, so if I give like a machine here with the splash, it holds that space much better because it can paint for the machine while the machine sort of like initiates fights and all that stuff. And then you can also get into throw burst bombs at people. You can also use your crab tank to initiate a retake, meaning that you crab tank first, then the machine can go in as the crab tank is on the field, and that would allow your push to start. Um, Now, essentially, as far as where you would want to use these things, like if you're using crab defensively, you could use it here, or if you're somewhere back in this area, you might be able to use your crab tank here. This is a good spot as well. You might even be able to use it somewhere along this side if you can get like a good angle. I mean, you could still hit stuff like that's in this general area. Um, but if you're like too far back and you can't get to this area in time, then you would probably use your crab tank up here instead. But if you're up here in this general area while the tower is being pushed in here, then you would probably crab tank here if you feel the need to. But honestly, it's not necessary, but you can totally do this. And it would just make it a lot harder for the team to push up here, basically. You can also try strike the tower just to stall it out. You could also zip cast, meaning that you get behind them. The person riding the tower then has to either get off and look away, and or just look back, meaning that it's going to be much harder for them to keep this push going. And if other people happen to be within this area, and you happen to zip cast behind them, they're going to start to look back this way. And once they look back this way, that means all the space is now open for you and your team to like actually push. And you have two weapons that can do it very easily, like these two weapons. So it would be very easy for them to take space, essentially. Um, and of course, if you're trying to like get picks as you're pushing up into like these parts of the map, like here generally, like somewhere like here, you could probably use your inkjet somewhere in these areas just to get picks. If you're like able to like get up here in this area, you can like sit back. You can also like sit in this area and use your inkjet to get more leverage, and that way you can easily have more access to all of this and shoot people, making it much harder for them to push. And while this area is now being denied, their only option is to go street. But if they can't go street, they're gonna be very stuck and left vulnerable in this open space. And that's if you have things like a machine that's like able to like push up with this. While the ballpoint does that. So your ballpoint would basically be somewhere like, if not here, it could be like somewhere here using jet as well. the machine will go up street with something like a stamper, while the splash just sits near them throwing burst bombs for like support, as it also paints for them. And that would just be your new comp in itself. So anyway, I'm gonna cut this video now, but I hope this has given you some insight. And if you have any questions, feel free to just send me like a message on Discord or whatever. I'm recording this at like damn near midnight, so I'm tired, but I hope what I said makes sense and it helps you guys out. Alright, have a good night. Peace out.